digital mean for you? Is it different from an IT strategy? Is it changing your lens on things?
I think it is in terms of contractually, legally. I mean, have lots of clients who spend millions on, a digital transformation or a digital project. So I always sort of ask them, what are you trying to achieve from this? What are the outcomes? So my view is, if you're using a standard T's and C's, for example, for IT goods and services, that you might as well be not having a contract or do it on the back of a fag packet. You need to, contract is used when things don't go to plan, and if things don't turn out as planned, you'll be looking at the words on the pages. So, if those words on the pages aren't clear in terms of collaboration, data protection, privacy, IP, roles and responsibilities, you're not going to have a sustainable, robust arrangement in place to make sure that you get what you pay for.
So to what extent, Sam, is this rush to deploy digital apps and go to the cloud? To what extent are the CIO community ignoring those sorts of contractual differences?
I think probably 95% of the time they do. They take it, but I mean, we've got clients who are banks, Formula One racing teams, you name it, large companies who basically sort of take a bit of a fly. You think, oh well, nothing will go wrong. And most cases things don't go wrong, but you don't hear of the cases where, because the cases aren't reported, because they're obviously confidentiality. They're all sort of settled behind closed doors. There are a number of things you'll be surprised to hear what companies get into big legal troubles, which are never reported in the press. So if you take a fly, you may be 50% of the chance you may get it right, 50% of the chance you may get it wrong. So yeah.
Taking a flyer, that's a I mean, one of the things, an observation I've seen is digital for me has really meant that IT has connected more with the customer, and it's become more people. So you start with the people. Phil, your experience, you talk about digital, good panel here. Do you find you're acting far more as it forces you to be a business person and to consider business outcomes? It's not technically really.
I think digital is just a modern word to describe what IT always should have been. I think IT itself has not become. I mean, at the end of the day, speed to market, user centricity, doing what the business wants to do, those are words that you'd have heard 30 years ago, just in slightly different language. Like you'd have heard cloud computing, we called it a big data center when I was younger. It is slightly, we're being sold by the supply side and supplied by the advisors like Gartner, a new set of words, not necessarily describing something new. In this case, what digital has forced companies to do, not IT to do, IT has to follow, what it's forced companies to do is to realise that they genuinely have a choice. They always had a choice, they found it hard to exercise their choice. Now, of course, when you go into stores and you see young people, they're looking at the barcode of something and they're on this buying app. So if that barcode can be bought anywhere else on the high street instantly or online, you realise they're actually genuine. Now a business has got to be fast. Is a price anymore? Is a price a bargaining point? That's something the retail industry is currently trying to debate. We're all seeing $4.99. Well, is it $4.99 unless you come and ask me for more offer and you can show me something different? All those begin to actually put the power back into the consumer. If digital does that, then it does a good job.
And when you look at delivering, I'm trying to avoid the word digital, when you're looking to deliver new technology to make something happen, do you feel you're operating far more as a business person because you're needing to think that way?
So I'm a business person who happens to do IT. So what we're trying to do is we used to turn up in IT and say, there's the answer. And the business and or the customer go, cool, what did I ask again? Whereas now we're designing everything from the user groups back into the company. Now a lot of people paid lip service to IT in the past, but actually now product design is done actually by the consumer, by the crowd, rather than actually by the IT department. That's changed completely. It's changed the supply side as well, because all the big providers to us and the big advisors to us, they say, well, this is the way you do it. It actually turns out it's not the way the customers consume it, so that's not the way we're going to do it. So the whole industry is having to change to keep up with that.
Chris, from your product set, Bacardi, I mean, are you seeing you're having to take a totally different view on how you deliver your IT, taking a business view?
I guess the point, I think IT has probably always felt like it was collaborating with other people who weren't IT people. But maybe the answer is maybe not always as well as we thought. I think it's, and certainly if you think, what I was kind of getting at is, I think the way technology is changing the way Bacardi makes money is really quite disruptive. right? And I guess the question is, how much does IT department have a role in that really? Sometimes less and less, right? So, I mean, for example, today, the target consumer, I mean, customers, consumers is kind of different in the CPG world. We don't sell anything to you. Tesco's does, or the bar does, or whatever. The customer today is kind of like a 21 to 24-year-old guy on a Friday night, right? He's walking down the road and he's more digitized than anything you could ever possibly imagine, and that's how you're catching him as a consumer, because you're throwing him a voucher at his mobile phone from whatever, because he just walked past the near field recognition system sitting in Weatherspoons and just been told, hey, if you come in here and buy a bucket of mojitos, we'll give you 20% off, kind of thing. I mean, that's a completely disruptive environment that, in reality, the IT organisation don't always understand, because they're not a 23-year-old guy walking down the road on a Friday night with a smartphone in his pocket. So I think there was an interesting presentation earlier from, I think it was Mike, I can't see him here actually, when he was talking about 70% of IT people kind of don't get each other. Right, so you've got the people that understand the traditional, how do you deliver an SAP, ERP with a great deal of structure and rigor and blah, 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 blah. And then you've got the young guy who is the 24-year-old who just wants to throw something out on Twitter to make some money. The two don't really talk to each other very much. How do you integrate those together better? That becomes a challenge. But I guess for me what happens is you start to get this new breed of professional. I mean, you may have always been that breed of professional, but the vast majority of IT probably weren't, right? And so that becomes an interesting challenge. And as I say, for me, it boils a lot down to that sort of different profiles and personalities.
Matthew, when you're dealing with clients and providing them with this technical technology, are you finding that you're engaging with them far more from a business outcome perspective?
I think it's both. I think it's a funny mix, actually. I think traditionally, if I go back 5 or 10 years, IT definitely, when we were building stuff, became quite detached in some places from the technology, because, you know, in truth, a lot of it was, it's sort of the layers we dealt with was sort of there or thereabouts. I think what's interesting, what's changed now, is that IT in most of the organisations we're working with, you know, take UEFA for example, we do a lot of work with them, is they are as much an enabler for the kind of customer experience. And UEFA, for those who may or may not know, is an entertainment outfit, right? That they're all about entertaining people on a match day. So we're developing, content for them such that you can have your smartphone or your tablet in the stadium, but only in the stadium because of content rights, such that you can watch the replay over and over again and this sort of thing. And so the IT guys see themselves more as an enabler, right? But it does sort of split it down two ways, sort of to Phil's point. You end up far closer to the product they're trying to achieve, right? So that is really the business outcome. But in some levels, one of the key things we see with a lot of organizations is there's an interesting mix, is depending on the skills that are useful to make them more competitive and get more out of this are different from the ones they used to have. Because if you think about it, one of the things we're doing as if you like, a supply side is we're trying to eliminate the sort of overhead that you had in delivering that infrastructure, such that you get on with the IT project. So you shorten, times down. So you're eliminating a bunch of the, what I would just call the logistic handling admin function, right, that used to exist either from a systems integrator or however you delivered the product. And you're dealing far more with the capability, and therefore the skills required in that are far more technical. You're looking at developers who understand things, scripting languages and Puppet and these sorts of things, because they're much faster at delivering the capability, which then meets the outcome. So I think I personally think it's far better. You're getting far more focus on both sides. I think in the past you kind of used to get this kind of grey wasn't really focusing so much on what the business outcome would be, and wasn't really so much in how you can use it as a technical advantage. And I think the polarization, if you like, if you want to use that word, is greatly beneficial, right?
It's much more exciting, isn't it? So
yeah.
IT is much more messy now. So I'm an IT bloke. I'm logical, I'm control, I'm governance. And I look at all this and think, God, I'm also old. But at the end of the day, what I
We're
find
all
really
old.
interesting is IT is now much more messy. There's more proof of concepts. There's less contracts in place.
Yeah.
I don't want to take exception to what Sam said at the end, but I don't think the contract and procurement was kept up with IT, kept up with